This is Starbase, and this is Starship, the best rocket ever created that's gonna change space into a before and after. Its performance alone makes it completely outclass not only NASA's 15 billion SLS, but every aerospace company on the planet. But how did Elon Musk and his team manage to do it? How can one rocket completely change space exploration and flight? What projects will be able to realize? How will it affect tourism and aviation on Earth? And most importantly, what routes will be available to mankind afterwards? About all this in this video. Let's start looking at why Starship is the best rocket ever, with the topic everyone is interested in: money. How much does it cost to launch this rocket? If you compare the price of launching Starship with the legendary Saturn V, which symbolized the first steps of mankind to the moon, or with modern rockets like NASA's Space Launch System and Falcon Heavy, the difference is striking. It's only $2 million for a single launch. But why is the price so low? The answer lies in a number of innovative solutions supplied by SpaceX. First of all, Starship is characterized by the complete reusability of all its components. This means that every part of the rocket can be used multiple times, just like you use your car for your daily commute. The minimal time between launches also plays an important role. Unlike classic rockets that require months of preparation, Starship is ready for a new flight in a matter of hours. Add to this the reduced cost of production and the use of methane as fuel, and you have a formula for success that reduces launch costs to record lows. But what does all this mean for the future of astronautics? A great deal. These low launch costs not only make space much more accessible to commercial companies, scientific institutions, and nations, but also open the door to missions that previously seemed impossible due to their high cost. Delivering cargo to the Moon and Mars, building orbital stations, exploring the depths of the solar system, and even commercial resource extraction on asteroids will now become a reality. Just imagine, today it costs about $10,000 to deliver 1 pound of cargo to orbit. But with Starship, that amount will be reduced to 300. This is a real breakthrough that will launch a real space fever. And that's not all. One of the most ambitious projects associated with Starship is Voyager Station, the first ever orbital hotel. The launch of this unique facility, which will be a huge spinning wheel that creates artificial gravity inside, is scheduled for 2027. It'll be able to accommodate up to 400 guests who will enjoy comfortable rooms, exquisite restaurants, cozy bars and recreation areas, and most importantly, unique views of our planet from the portholes. In addition, Starship will allow to realize the dream of many travelers, to make intercontinental flights in a matter of minutes. For example, the journey from Sydney to New York will take only 60 minutes, and from London to Tokyo, 40 minutes. But it's not just the low cost that makes Starship unique. This rocket has another major advantage: incredible payload capacity. Compared to previous rockets, Starship, thanks to its impressive size, 400 feet tall and 30 feet wide, and powerful Raptor engines, is capable of lifting more than 165 tons of payload into space. Starship will be able to deliver entire modules, laboratories, and production facilities to the Moon and Mars, greatly speeding up base construction and reducing costs. Solar panels, nuclear reactors, and other power plants can be shipped in one piece, along with large supplies of food, water, and consumables, making it easier to extract energy and live on other planets, opening up new horizons for exploration and colonization of near space. We'll finally be able to take a step forward, which we'll talk about later in this video. But we shouldn't forget about projects in Earth's orbit. For example, take the Starlink network of satellites, which aims to place 30,000 satellites in low Earth orbit to provide fast internet throughout the Earth. So far, the delivery is carried out by Falcon 9, which launches about 60 satellites in one launch and has already delivered 7,320 satellites. But while the process is going pretty fast, it could go even faster. And when Starship enters the arena, it'll be able to send 600 satellites into space in just one launch, meaning that the 30,000 unit goal will be reached in just 38 launches. Incredible! However, this is only a small part of what Starship is capable of, because there are other missions that could change our understanding of space. For example, as was the case with Hubble and James Webb. One such project that could, in theory, explain to us many of the laws of the universe is the Euclid satellite, a joint ESA and NASA mission that will investigate the mysterious nature of the dark energy and dark matter that make up most of the universe. Also noteworthy is the Nancy Grace Roman mission. The goal of the program is to map galaxies to understand the evolution of the universe in the past, present, and future. And of course, we cannot ignore the Atlas concept, the next-generation telescope after James Webb, the main task of which will be to search for traces of life on exoplanets and detailed study of the origin of the first stars and galaxies. So, we already know that Starship offers unprecedented low launch prices and a huge payload, but the main feature of this rocket is something else. It lies in its reusability. Until now, the fate of most rockets ended sadly. After a couple of minutes of flight, they burned up in the atmosphere, turning into scrap metal. But with the introduction of Starship, all that will change. After launching into orbit, the first stage of the rocket, called Super Heavy, separates and after a few minutes begins deceleration, gently landing on the ground or in a special floating platform with the help of Mechazilla, while the second stage continues its journey in space, carrying out the specified missions. And the way the second stage lands on Earth looks even more interesting, because after reaching the target orbit, when Starship shuts down its engines and enters the freefall phase, the fall is not vertical but sideways, using a maneuver known as belly flop. This method effectively slows the rocket down, saving fuel, and allows for a safe return to Earth. Of course, reusable technologies already exist. The Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are already able to return their first stages, but the problem comes from the fact that only certain parts of the rocket are returned, not the entire structure, which creates additional problems. Imagine if you had to replace wings or engines after every airplane flight. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? And that's exactly the problem Starship will solve. Both the first and second stage components of the rocket are designed to be completely reusable, so that the entire rocket can return to Earth and be ready for new missions. Starship is expected to be reusable up to 100 times, which is far more cost-effective than building a new rocket for each launch, but not yet as cost-effective as using airplanes, which can make tens of thousands of sorties. But it's important to remember that Starship is just the beginning of the reusable era in space technology. But that's not all. Among other things, Starship stands out for its modular design. What's so special about it? You're about to find out. The main advantage of modularity is the high speed of assembly and scalability. So depending on the tasks of a particular mission, you can easily change the size of the ship and its functionality. Components are assembled separately and integrated into the overall design later. This greatly speeds up the assembly process and allows you to work on different parts at the same time. It also increases maintainability. If a module fails, it can be replaced without having to completely disassemble the ship, saving a lot of time. In this way, building Starship resembles assembling a Lego constructor. It's not by chance that we mentioned airplanes. After all, everyone knows that one and the same airplane can be used both for passenger transportation and for cargo transportation, military operations, or rescue missions. The same versatility will be inherent in the Starship. What exactly variants of this missile will be created, you will learn after watching this video to the end. You have already realized that Starship is designed not only for orbital missions but also for long-distance space travel. But in this case, how to provide enough fuel for such flights if the tanks of the rocket will be empty shortly after launch, without even leaving the atmosphere? SpaceX engineers have found a solution. When the fuel reserves on board of Starship will begin to run out, a special cargo rocket will launch from Earth, which will dock with the main ship and replenish its methane reserves. It's important to mention that the volume of fuel Starship can hold is impressive in itself, as much as 5,000 tons. For comparison, the Falcon Heavy holds about 1,300 tons of liquid propellant. Refueling in orbit has many advantages. First, it avoids the need to lift the entire mass of propellant for long-distance missions from Earth, which greatly reduces the load in the launch vehicle and increases the payload. Thus, Starship will be able to reach more distant targets such as Mars or the asteroid belt without overloading fuel on Earth. But we have a lot of places to go beyond the Red Planet, don't we? If an entire refueling station in orbit could be created, it would open up flights and missions not only to Jupiter and Saturn and their satellites, but beyond. Having such stations will ensure safety for both cargo and astronauts by providing a backup in case of emergencies such as fuel leaks or engine problems. When it comes to refueling, you can't fail to mention the fuel used to fuel Starship, methane. Why exactly was it chosen by SpaceX? First, the use of methane makes Starship an environmentally friendly solution, as it's a renewable resource that leaves a smaller carbon footprint than traditional fuels. Also worth noting is the availability of methane in nature and the ease of storage and transportation. This hydrocarbon is easily liquefied and stored at low temperatures. This is ideal for long-duration missions. But what's even cooler is that methane-powered engines exhibit increased thrust and efficiency. In addition, perhaps the most interesting aspect is that methane can be extracted from other planets, such as Mars and some other celestial bodies that have reserves of water and carbon dioxide from which methane can be synthesized. This opens up the prospect of creating entire refueling stations on other planets. And if we compare methane with kerosene, which is widely used nowadays, it turns out that methane is the leader here as well, since its use gives 20% more energy per unit mass, as well as better heat conductivity, which extends engine life by increasing the efficiency of the cooling system by 10–15%. In the case of building refueling stations in orbit, the longevity of fuel storage is also important, and the half-life of methane in the atmosphere is as much as 12 years. This makes it 2–3 times more stable than similar fuels in long-term storage. That's why methane will be the fuel of choice for Starship. It's just better. Cheapness, payload capacity, reusability, and environmental friendliness already make Starship the best rocket ever made. But there's something else amazing: the possibility of long-distance space missions. As you already know, Starship has several versions for different purposes. Cargo version for transportation of fuel and valuable cargo, special lunar version, and regular version. If everything is clear with the cargo version, the other two versions are of special interest. Since the lunar and regular versions are designed to carry passengers, they're equipped with everything necessary for a comfortable flight: living modules and medical rooms, recreation and work areas, storage and technical compartments, as well as life support systems. The number of crew on board can reach 100 people. Taking a look at the lunar version, you must have wondered, why is it so different from the usual Starship? The fact is that NASA chose Starship for its Artemis program aimed at returning men to the moon and creating a permanent lunar base. And since the conditions on the moon are different from those on Earth, important changes were made in the design of the rocket, removed the heat shield, added special mechanisms for landing on the moon, and increased payload volume. These modifications make the lunar version of Starship more specialized to perform unique tasks on the moon. That's why it differs markedly from the base model. Elon Musk, driven by the desire to conquer the Red Planet, is undertaking this task alone. One single ship can take on board entire teams of scientists, engineers, physicists, botanists, biologists, and astronomers, which are so necessary on Mars. While the passenger ship will rush to its destination, it will be accompanied by cargo rockets that will carry all the necessary equipment, living modules, laboratories, and production facilities. This will be the first step towards colonizing Mars. But the arrival on the Red Planet will not mark the end of Starship's operation. The fact is that thanks to this rocket, it can organize the production of fuel right on the spot, using local resources, which will allow it to establish regular flights between Earth and Mars. It's assumed that Starship will be able to produce up to 220 tons of fuel per cycle. And while Starship will be busy producing fuel, colonists will be able to start exploring Mars, searching for minerals and developing technologies for their extraction. For example, exploring underground water ice and potential mineral deposits. In the long term, Musk is considering the possibility of terraforming Mars, which of course will require a huge amount of effort and time, but will eventually allow to change the climate and atmosphere of the Red Planet, making it suitable for life. We shouldn't forget about the other possibilities that Starship opens up, the outer reaches of the solar system. Thanks to this rocket, we can finally conquer Europa, Enceladus, and Titan. Scientists have long dreamed of drilling through the ice sheets of Europa and Enceladus to explore the oceans beneath them. Starship will be able to get the drilling rigs and submersibles there to accomplish this goal. Titan's atmosphere is rich in organic compounds, and Starship would allow powerful laboratories and telescopes to be installed on its surface to scrutinize its atmosphere and surface, which could lead us to the discovery of the first extraterrestrial life. Thus, Starship is not just a rocket. It's the key to a future in which humanity expands its borders, explores new worlds, and unlocks the mysteries of the solar system. But even as we refine and release new versions of this rocket, we won't be able to reach other stars and planets. Mankind will need spaceships much faster, so we encourage you to watch our video on how we can break the speed barriers, build the next generation of spacecraft, even exceed the speed of light, and travel to distant worlds like Proxima Centauri B.